Hello there, it's Jaymz Bee. I'm in New Orleans right now, and I'm having a great time. But thanks to modern technology and my faithful assistant, JJ Brown, it's coming to you as it does every Friday. Perhaps you're on Facebook, in which case you're only seeing a little bit of what's happening in Toronto. If you want the full interview with Alex Pangman, go to jaymzbee.ca, click on podcast, and you will see my vodcast. Yes, it's a visual podcast. That's what I'm doing here. And if you're seeing this, that means you're probably wondering what's happening in Toronto. I hope you are, because I want to tell you. First of all, it is my birthday coming up, birthday week. So I would love to see you at more than one of these parties if possible. And before I get started, I want to say a quick thank you. Okay, these broke at my last Look People show at the Horseshoe. I thought I might get away with it for this show, but luckily I brought some trusty readers. Okay, because I have notes here. Before I get to the listings, Barbarian Steakhouse, thank you. Love your food. Been there a lot lately. Want to thank all the people who take me there for business meetings because I love it. And I just found a new wine, Anthill Farms Pinot Noir from Sonoma County. Wow, what an amazing wine. I'll be back for more wine and more food at Barbarian Steakhouse, 7 Elm Street. Also, thank you to Patreon, all the people who actually donate to me. Maybe it's $5 or $10 a month. Some people even do 20 or more. Thank you all. I've got a brand new house. I'm moving in May. I'm going to throw some salons, and I'm going to invite the people that support me on Patreon to come. And if you're not in the Toronto area, I thank you with all my heart, and I hope you come visit me someday. BarberFinancial.com. He knows a lot about finance. Whether you're a small fry with a few questions or you have a big company with a lot of employees, Paul Barber, smart man, knows about money, and he will be able to help you out. BarberFinancial.com or .ca. Okay, now events coming up. My birthday week is here. And I'm always doing a bunch of parties. So I'm going to do 3 charity events, and one of them is Wednesday, April 10th, and it's not really me, I'm producing the show, but it's Jazz Lives. It's the biggest show Jazz FM does every year. It's at Kerner Hall. So many amazing singers, so many amazing musicians. You put them all together on a stage, and it's a huge celebration. David Clayton Thomas, Kelly Lee Evans, Lila Bialy, June Garber, the list goes on and on and on. Just take a look, jazz.fm, and get your tickets. Wednesday, April 10th. It's going to be a great show. Tickets are as low as $38. Unbelievable. Now, I'm back at Jazz FM, by the way. I'm going to be leading a jazz safari to Portugal. If you want to go to Portugal in the end of July, jazz.fm, you'll find about that. And my show started last night. Jazz in the City is back. It's Thursdays now from 9 till midnight, 3 hours of local jazz, and I hope you'll tune in. Okay, now, April 11th, I'm going to be heading over to Bloom Restaurant. Love this place. Really a great listening room. Everyone is so quiet, so respectful, incredible food. And you're going to hear jazz, blues, Peruvian music, Latin jazz, all brought to you by the beautiful Irene Torres and the beautiful Michelle DeQuevedo and the beautiful Eric St. Laurent. Yeah, they're all sweet. And you're going to love it. There's only a handful of tickets left for that. $55 for a 3-course meal and show. BloomRestaurant.com. Now, my actual date of birth is April 13th. I'm at Palais Royale. I'm seeing a show with Colin Hunter and the Anthony Terpstra Big Band, also Faith Amour and the Savoy Band. This is going to be non-stop dance music. If you love Lindy Hop, swing dancing, you know, that kind of thing, you're going to love this. And maybe you just want to watch. It's an incredible show. It's a beautiful venue, and there will be lots of young swing dancers throwing each other around and having a fun time. Dance lessons start at 7. Show starts at 8. Get there at 7 o'clock. Tickets are $40 at the door, 20 for students with ID. You can also pick up tickets by just going to palaisroyale.ca. Don't go to .com, you'll be in some other country, some other city. .ca, and then just click on public events and you'll get all the info right there. Now, Monday, April 15th, the biggest party I've ever thrown. It's for Unison Benevolent Fund, a charity I love so much. I've been talking about this for a few weeks now. Go to unisonfund.ca. Read up about what these people do for music and the arts, for people in the music industry in moments of crisis. They're an important organization. And this party, oh man, $40 gets you in the door. 20 bands in 10 different rooms with a map to get you through the entire castle and go looking through all these places. Okay, it's a mill, not a castle, but it looks like a castle, and unbelievable performers, including these ones. I like lists. They're fun. There's also a gala dinner Tom Cochrane, what a sweet guy. Everybody loves Tom Cochrane, not just because he wrote Life is a Highway, because he's a great guy. He's really involved in all kinds of philanthropic work. He's getting friends together. They're coming down to sing at a gala dinner. Those are $200 tickets. So you come in at 6, and then at 8 o'clock, you join everybody else and walk through the building and see as many bands as you can. It's going to be an incredible time. Unison.ca for that. And let's see. Speaking of Old Mill Toronto, there's a lot happening at the Homesmith Bar in the next week. We're going to go into the clubs now. John McLeod with Mark Eisenman and Pat Collins are performing. Adrian Ferrugia is next week. Michelle Millet. They all have shows. And oldmilltoronto.com is where you get all the listings for the Homesmith Bar. Great stuff. While you're online, you could check therex.ca. They book about 18 bands between now and the next time I'll be talking to you next Friday, including Lorne Lofsky, Andy Milne, Tom Reynolds, Alex Goodman, and a whole bunch more. Therex.ca. And then Lula Lounge, they have their global after-work party. This is a nice early thing, 6:30. You go in there, have cocktails, really good cocktails. You can have some food, 7:30, live band, and it just kind of rocks all night long. Live music and DJ and lots of people. Lula Lounge is so cool. Salsa Saturdays. And check this out on Sunday. This is crazy. On Sunday, morning and afternoon, like hundreds of music students are going to be there, all different ages, all doing recitals. It's such a cool thing, you know. Lula Lounge are really a community-based club, and doing things like this make me happy. They're even doing an event Sunday night, a benefit for Bernie, who is a young man with a rare genetic disorder and a single mom, and there's a concert raising money for Bernie. All this stuff is so cool. You gotta love Lula Lounge. Lula.ca for that. And HughesRoomLive.com. Speaking of community, there's another one. These guys do great work, and there's so much going on. You should get tickets in advance. For example, Oakland Stroke on Sunday night, completely sold out. But what I want to talk about is April 11th, next Thursday. Jane, Sweet Jane, it's called Sweet Jane, it's for Jane Harbury. She's a publicist. She has helped me for so many years. She's helped so many people for so many years. She booked clubs, she worked in the music industry, now she's a music publicist for a long time. And here are some of the people you can see. So it's April 11th. $50 tickets in advance, and you do want to get them. It'll be sold out 100%. Just a few people: Sylvia Tyson, Mark Jordan, Ian Thomas, Good Brothers, way more. Crazy, huh? And then Jazz Bistro, lots going on tonight, 9 p.m. and tomorrow night. Amy McConnell, William Sparandi Trio. These guys are incredible. I have 2 of their records. I play them with wild, joyous abandon. I still love their music so much. And you can see them. An amazing band, really romantic. Bring a date if you can. It's sexy, beautiful music. It really is. It's so, the arrangements are really cool. Also this week, Sienna Dalen, Juno Award winner, she's playing. Rosanna Gassi, swing. Charles Di Ramondo. So many people are playing there. Check it all out, jazzbistro.ca. Now, I want to go talk to Alex Pangman right away. I'm too excited, so let's just go, okay?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm really good.
I know you're really good. You're a great singer.
I aim to please.
When did you figure out? I heard rumor it was Louis Armstrong. When did you know you had to sing? How old were you?
Well, I was probably little. I apparently never stopped singing when I was little. And I got the role of Annie in the school play. So that was, I guess, the start of encouraging Alex to be a singer.
And you're a natural redhead.
I am a natural redhead, so that part at least went well. But
the Annie. When did it go to jazz? When did you first remember hearing?
Well, I remember hearing jazz. My dad had 2 records. He had Cleo Lane, and he had Brubeck at the Brandenburg Gate. And I thought that's what jazz was. And as a 9-year-old kid who was listening to the Mini Pops and, you know, Madonna, I didn't like jazz. So it wasn't until much, much later, until I was in my teens, and I was out at the stable. I've always loved horses, and one of the fellow equestrians knew that I had a guitar, because I would bring it out to the stable to play for the horses, as one does. And he took the guitar and started to play jazz right there in the stable. He's sitting on a bench, and that's the first time I heard jazz. And I was probably in my teens, and it was perfect, because I'd been looking for some kind of music that I could really connect to. And it's sort of immediately the melodies drew me in. And then once I started getting, this gentleman would lend me records. When I started hearing the lyrics, I just knew that I found a musical home and something that I could obsess and learn all the songs to. And
do you remember the songs he was playing? Were they jazz standards or were they old trad jazz? Or do you remember what it was?
Well, it was that, because he was a guitarist in a trad band. But I know he played, I think it was Rosetta there on the hay bales that day.
Right.
And then, oddly enough, Eric Clapton had just put out a record. And there was a Bessie Smith song on it, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. So I learned that and came to sing at the Schnitzel House with his trad band. And so I sang Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. And so then followed the Bessie Smith records. But I think they realized that I could sing pretty melodic songs as well. So I was also getting Mildred Bailey records. And
so you're a teenager singing with a bunch of old guys in a Schnitzel House.
Yeah. Welcome to my world.
Everyone must have loved you, though. Imagine.
I think anytime a
beautiful kid who loves music, right? Yeah, it's.
Yes. So the Schnitzel. It was a good gig. It was fun.
You mentioned Betsy, Mildred Bailey, Maxine Sullivan. Some of the people that you like, they're not that famous. they're renowned in a way, but
true.
They're not Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah, exactly. But so the thing with, I had really good mentors back then. So I was coming in fresh. I didn't know any of the melody, and I didn't know any of the way that you would sing jazz. So my mentors were the guys in that band, and they wanted me to hear melodic singers so I could learn the melody. Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, even Louis Armstrong to a certain extent play with the melody. They jazz it. These guys thought it would be important for me to actually learn what Stardust sounded like, or learn the melody to these songs before I ever listened to any of the people that jazz the melody. So I got to listen to some of the lesser iconic people. And I really liked that, because it was a really important part, I think, always for people learning jazz music is know where it came from. So I was loving listening to all the straight versions and hearing
and this is 20s and 30s music for a teenager in the early 80s, right? Is that about right?
I think it was the 90s, Jaymz Bee.
You're so young.
But yeah, it was really weird because everybody in my class was listening to Backstreet Boys or I don't even know because I wasn't listening. But I know that I was listening to Paula Abdul in my basement and thought there has to be something better than Paula Abdul and Bon Jovi. And anyways, I found it. Right.
That drum, that electronic drum sound, you got past that pretty quick.
I didn't know what I wanted, but when I heard this really organic sounding, fluid, sincere music, I glommed onto it because that was everything that wasn't present in the pop music I heard.
Now, as we go through your story a bit, I think it's important that we acknowledge your health issues, because even back then, I'm curious, what was your health like when you were this teenager singing at the Schnitzel House?
Okay, so if we back way up, I was born with cystic fibrosis. And cystic fibrosis is primarily a lung disease that never ends great. And I think because I had this diagnosis, my parents said, well, just let her do what she wants to do. It's kind of weird that it's singing, because it's her lungs.
Because her lungs, right. The last thing you should be doing.
But it's actually really good exercise for the lungs. It draws air into the base of the lobes, and most importantly, she loves to do it. So, boom. And throughout my life, I would have infections where I would end up in the hospital once a year. But what happens is as you get older, you get more of these infections and they become harder to treat. CF is very pernicious, and it's quite a thief. And eventually the patient gets to a point where they need a lung transplant. And I absolutely remember a moment actually between you and I was coming to the radio station you were working at then, and I was, I think I had just realized that I would have to get a lung transplant. And I remember I was sad. I was very sad and scared. And I've known you for, well, I'm not going to say a million years, but
A long time,
I think
right?
since about 1998.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's say 20 years.
Yeah.
And I remember you just, you gave me a nice big hug there in front, and I think some people walked by and thought, what's going on there?
I remember the same thing. We both had a little cry, but we were also, there was also a feeling of, you're going to kick this. This is going to work. You're one of the good ones. You got to stick around. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird commingling of hope and being petrified. But yeah, so throughout all that, the waiting for a lung transplant, I had to try and stay positive, and I wasn't singing as much. I was singing, but not as much. It was harder, but I just had to try and keep. Well, we say in my house, keep your eye on the prize, and that is that when transplant works, it works beautifully, and so I did get that surgery.
A double lung transplant.
Yes. Sounds like, yes, I got all of them replaced, all the lungs, all the lobes, and I think I was back singing gigs within like about a year, right? Yeah. So now my lungs don't have cystic fibrosis, but they'll always be a little finicky because they're not my own lungs. And I did have problems with them after the transplant. So.
Now, how many years did you keep your second set of lungs?
Okay, so I got my first set of lungs in 2008. So I was a newlywed. I had so much to give, and I was busy giving it when I had rejection at about 4 years after the transplant. And so I always say that I should work as a barista because I had a double, which which means that I had a re-transplant. So I had rejection, I was relisted, I was extremely lucky yet again to get a beautiful set of lungs, and so now we're at 10 years, which is
unbelievable. So you've gone through 2 double lung transplants, you're double, and the third technically, but your second pair of donated lungs really, like I remember hearing a story that you just got up and were walking around the hospital and the nurse said, no, you need to sit down.
Well, I don't quite remember the hospital too clearly. I know there was a lot of medication, but I do know that, you never know when the transplant's coming, and I had a music festival gig, and I hadn't yet found a substitute. So I would like to preface this by saying that before the surgery, I could still sing. I needed to sit down. I was, it wasn't like I was doing the typical Alex Pangman show where I'm,
dancing and slapping and
It wasn't any of that, but I could still sing. We did Massey Hall 3 weeks before the transplant, sitting on a stool. My pager was in my pocket, sort of thing.
Oh, right, because if it went off, it's like, gotta go from the show, I'm going to get some lungs.
Just as soon as I finished this song.
Yeah.
But that was really cool that the organizers believed in me and let me keep that show at Massey, despite the fact that I was, for all intents and purposes, in rejection and dying.
Wow.
But so anyways, I hadn't got my head around finding substitute, players to pinch hit for me if my pager went off. And it did go off, and I think it was 10 days after the surgery that I realized I better find somebody to play that. I think it was Port Hope's Jazz Festival. Couldn't find anybody, so I just decided I would play it. And so I think about 3 weeks after they sewed me up, I was standing on stage.
No, that is insane, right?
Well,
that's a little bit.
The power of the drugs, they make you think. Well, they do. The steroids make you think that you are Wonder Woman. And also I was on a lot of painkillers too, so I was feeling pretty good. The funny thing is, because I've had lung disease my whole life, I've never smoked anything. I don't do drugs. But that show was so emotional. I mean, aside from, I'd never sung with any kind of opiates in my body before. I've always, heard from people that it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
That was a really good show. And I don't think it was that I was high. I think it was good because it was the culmination of months of worry, and it feels like a lifetime when you're waiting for lungs. And all of a sudden, 3 weeks after they sew me up, I'm standing on stage with my sextet in front of a jazz festival audience, and I hadn't sung anything until sound check that day. I didn't know what would come out, and it came out like music. And it had been so long since I could sing without feeling my lungs betraying me that it was. I mean, Massey was a great show. This was better.
Yeah. And you once said it was like breathing through a tiny straw. Before, so you'd sing short phrases and you'd be just getting just enough air, and then all of a sudden you're in an outdoor festival with some new lungs from some amazing person.
Yeah, well, that's just it. I mean, you explained it beautifully, and I used to have to, it was jazz. I could back phrase. If I ran out of air, I'd just take small, there'll be a pause there while I breathe, and it'll be a groovy, way of phrasing this phrase. But all of a sudden I could make big, long lines again because I had liters of air. Like I had more air in the tank. Anyways, that was just a really great show. And I wasn't even wearing a bra because the incision for lung transplant runs along here. But I still had staples along there. So it's the first time I've ever been on stage without a bra. But I disguised that beautifully. So it was really soon after transplant. And I remember, there's only a couple times I've ever felt really emotional on stage, but they gave us a standing ovation. I don't even think they knew.
Right. You kept this a secret until the second time through, and then kind of, you wanted to be healthy. I remember you saying you wanted to be healthy and tell people what you've been through. You didn't want their sympathy. Yeah,
I was always weird I never wanted people to know about my health, but transplant kind of changes that. It makes you want to tell people that they can influence, they can be heroes when they pass away. So part of what's happened for me in the last, part of my life is telling people that they can change lives. Because for organ transplants, it's not automatic in this country. You have to opt in, which means you have to go to beadonor.ca and tell them, listen, I want to save lives when I die. Because we're not looking for you to give us money. And we already recycle our newspaper and our plastic bottles, so what the heck are you... I mean, I know there will be some people that are weirded out by it, or maybe have an idea in their head that they don't want to give their organs, but really, they're just going to waste, and there are hundreds of people waiting for a new day, for a new second wind like I had.
Now, you don't automatically get to know who your donor is, but you can ask, and if they want and you want, you can find out who it is, right?
Well,
is that
not
a thing?
Exactly.
No?
So in Ontario, privacy is a really big thing, right? So you are invited to write a letter to the donor family and say, thank you, this has changed my life in these ways, I'm so grateful, whatever you want to say. That is sent anonymously. It's really kind of cool. They go through your letter and make sure there's no descriptors that might lead to them figuring out who you are. So they take a black pen and they black
redact everything.
Yeah. So and then my first transplant, I never heard back from my donor family, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. They will probably have their own reasons for not wanting to be in touch, but at least I know they got my letter of gratitude, and I already know they're kind people because they let this happen. Because ultimately it's your family that is there in the hospital. So I always tell people, hey, if you want to be an organ donor, sure, sign your consent at beadonor.ca, but also tell your family and your friends, because they're the ones that are going to be on the hot seat in the moment. Anyways, my second transplant, I got a beautiful letter back from the same government organization. Again, they blacked out a bunch of stuff on that letter so that I wouldn't be able to figure out who this person was. And it was a beautiful letter. This person loved to sing. This person grew up on a farm. So right away I'm thinking, well, this is a pretty good, I love horses, I love to sing. So I learned a lot from that letter. And it just so happened that we can send letters back and forth now. Again, they're monitored because privacy is key, right? And I understand that. It has to be that way, especially in, you don't want to have somebody phoning you up at Christmas dinner and saying, "What are you doing with my son's liver?"
Right.
So I get the privacy thing, and I totally respect it. But it has been really great to be able to have some communications via those letters with them and just stay a little bit in touch.
Now, your love of horses, was that, I mean, all kids love horses, but you had a horse. How did that start?
I got a horse because I was a sickly little child, and my parents took pity on me. And they thought, let's give this kid who's not going to be around very long a nice time. So horses have become a really huge part of my life. Some people with CF can have kids. I've never wanted to have children, so I have a horse instead.
Wasn't your horse almost saving your life for a while? I mean, I remember you telling me that your horse was your legs. Your horse gave you the exercise, because sitting on a horse is actually exercise on all of your muscles, right? It
actually is. You know that because you've come out with me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're all stretched out when you ride a horse.
Yeah, and it sort of uses all your muscles, so it's great. And plus you get the interaction with the animal, which is emotionally fulfilling. But yeah, so we got a pony, and it's so weird. She really was part of my physiotherapy. She helped my lungs a lot when I was growing up. And if it weren't for that stable that guy with the jazz guitar in the stable, and also the lady who ran the stable, Oriole Holiday, she was a huge traditional jazz fan. And so between the two of them, it just directionalized me towards jazz. So I owe a lot of my happiness in life to horses.
And didn't you jump for a while? I've seen pictures of you on a horse jumping over fences.
Yeah, we do that.
Well, that's kind of... There's a lot of things special about you. Jumping fences on a horse when you've got cystic fibrosis seems like an interesting switcheroony.
Well, it's fun. And I don't think it's... everybody likes to have fun. Don't you like to dance?
Yeah.
It's thrilling. Maybe that's why I never had to do drugs, because I could get high on my pony. But yeah, no, it's a kick. And I like it because it's very rhythmic, and music is rhythmic. So I feel that there's a bridge between the horses and the music somehow.
Did you always like painting, or was it your love of horses that had you painting? I remember seeing a painting of a horse that I loved, and you actually painted it.
Yeah, I do some art. I have done some art. It's just nice to have a diversified artistic portfolio in this in this climate of arts today. So I do some animal portraits, but that's I don't know. I've always had a very strong right brain. Left brain, not so much. But I'm real good at giving myself a needle.
Right. I guess you have to do that a lot.
Yeah, unfortunately.
With your love of a little bit of everything, like painting, did you ever think about acting? Have you ever...
It's funny because when I was driving here today, I passed a street on which I did an audition. Maybe the only audition, other than Annie, that I've ever done. And it was for a commercial about organ transplant. And I didn't get the job. They said, "Oh, we really want you to come in and do this audition." And I said, "Okay." But then they kept telling me, like, imagine that you've just woken up from your transplant and you're sitting on the bed and you're taking your first breath for the first time and it's amazing. And I just kept saying, "But that's not how it happens. You're full of pain medication and tubes and this is so stupid." But anyways, they didn't hire me, so no acting for me.
No acting. Your first couple of records were with Jeff Healey. Then you started producing some of your own records. Do you have a favorite album? Well, first of all, how many records do you have? 9, 10?
Well, let's see. Yeah, it's probably 7 or 8 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
I think I have some favorite songs, but a favorite album as a piece is probably the one I did called 33. It just worked really well as an album together. It was all songs that were popular in 1933. I was 33 when I made the record. It was actually the first record I made after Transplant. So it's so joyous.
And that's the one Bucky Pizzarelli was a guest?
No, that was the next. That was the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, on 33, I'm joined by my Alley Cats, but also I've got Denzel Sinclair sings a ballad with me, and who else I got on there? Ron Sexsmith, and my super. I have a band called the Alley Cats that I've had for about 20 years now. Some of the characters have come and gone, but these are people that we breathe in the same rhythm. We vibrate on, and we love all the same things, and so 33 is a really good time capsule of the Ross Wooldridge, Brigham Phillips, Kevin Clark kind of sound.
Yeah.
So, I'm so proud of my band. And really, honestly, like if I want to make another horse analogy, I sometimes feel like the little tiny jockey that sits on top of the racehorse, and then I go, and then they just go, and I'm just like sitting on top, waving victoriously, but they are doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, right?
Glenn Anderson on drums.
Yes.
Chris Banks on bass. Peter Hill on piano.
Yeah.
And then you've got a bunch of interesting other options. Drew Dureka.
Yep.
Violin, sax, whistling, singing, he's doing everything. And lately, what is it like with John McLeod? Because when Kevin Clark left town, I guess you really needed the right trumpet player, didn't you?
Yeah, and we have some great trumpet players in Toronto. Kevin was great. Those were great years. I recently, within the last 4 or 5 years, started working with John McLeod, and that was really exciting. I was scared to call him. Actually, the first time I called him, I think he thought I was a telemarketer, so I said, "Hello, is John..." I was quite nervous. "Is John McLeod there?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Okay," and I hung up, and I was like, "Oh man, I must have got the wrong number." And then about 5 minutes later, he phoned back and he said, "I'm sorry, are you a musician?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were a telemarketer." And it's been beautiful ever since. But and then I was a little bit off, I was a little bit at ease. And that first gig that I worked with him, I could not even look at him. Standing next to me he has such a unique thumbprint as a cornet player, and he brought about 10 mutes, so he kept changing up his sound to suit the song, and he was just so good, such quality. And I was grinning every time I'd go to look at him. I had to look at the floor. Mm-hmm. I was sort of starstruck, and then to find out that he really liked what we were doing, what the band was doing, and wanted to be part of it was really exciting. Yeah. And now I can look at him.
Right. But you're right. His big band charts and his background is so huge in this country. Not just Toronto, everywhere. Everyone knows him. And then I didn't even know he played cornet quite like that, because he does all these huge things. And then to see him in a small combo is really something. Yeah.
I mean, he's got a really big toolkit, because his big band is colored with all sorts of progressive sounds and ways, and to know that he can play, like Hackett or early Armstrong, I just kept pinching myself going, does this exist? I didn't know this. I think I wrote you a message and said, I didn't think a player like this existed in Canada anymore, right? So yeah. I'm super glad. Yeah. Super glad to work with him. Super humble, amazingly talented, funny, warm. It's great. Tell me about your trips to New Orleans and how that has inspired you, because you've recorded 2 albums, an album and an EP in New Orleans. Yeah. Well, it's always nice to have Kevin Clark to visit there. Speaking of great trumpet players. So after my second transplant, apparently I was back up and running within weeks. So I booked a trip to New Orleans. It was sort of a celebration of life, and we went down there, and I always get really invigorated by the music scene down there. There's post-Katrina, Frenchman Street sort of opened up and really became a hub, and you could just crisscross the street and hear great trad bands. So I was very excited by that, and finding some kindred spirits down there, musicians who I dug, who, New Orleans, this is such a friendly, welcoming town. Hey, sit in. Right. All of a sudden, you feel part of the scene, and of course with Kevin living there. And I'd recorded with John Royan on piano, who's from down there, in 1999? 99? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I knew some people down there. Sitting down, just had a lung transplant about 6 months ago. go, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, this seems like the right thing to do. Let's make a record here. So, and actually our producer, Goat Gilchrist, is also Canadian, but he lives down there. So it was like a little happy party. And we recorded in a church, an old church, that is now a recording studio. And I used mostly the guys from the Cottonmouth Kings, who are fantastic. Their fiddle player, I call him the Drew Jureka of New Orleans. And Kevin Clark came on trumpet, of course. And it's another one of those happy snapshots of where I was after that transplant. And
what about the acetate? You did some old-fashioned recording.
Yeah. So I love old records. I mean, you mentioned Jeff Healey earlier, and he was sort of instrumental in getting me started in downtown jazz, but also in record collecting. So getting original source material. So I have a massive collection of old 78 RPMs. Love it. Guess what? You could still make a record these days on acetate at 78 RPMs. So I have a friend in New Orleans who has the old cutting machines, and he had begun recording people to acetate. It's like a highly flammable substance. Like if you, you don't want the music to be too hot, ha. But yeah, so we went in this little shack. It was a tiny recording studio just on the edge of the road. And like in between takes, you can hear like the Marigny train whistle. You could hear dogs barking. It was really, I'm surprised none of it showed up on the record, but one microphone for the whole trio and me. So if you wanted to be louder, you walked closer to the microphone. That was your gain pedal, ostensibly. Mm-hmm. And it was an old Presto machine and a Presto microphone, and I was 5 feet away from the needle that was actually cutting the groove in front of me. And then at the...
Wow, amazing.
Why do I do these things? Anyways, so here's the thing, because I love all these old records and the Source and the Louis Armstrong, I wanted to find out what was going through their minds, because they didn't have all this trickery in studios. You couldn't add, reverb later on. You couldn't edit if you didn't like that solo, sew in another solo that you liked better. It just was, it was live, right? Mm-hmm. And what were the feelings that they felt making a record live when the needle was cutting the wax in front of them? So I kind of got in that instant how exciting it was to make records in 1920 when it was still young, and it really is exciting. It brings your A game when you know that if you screw up this take, you screw the whole band up. So you really bring your A game, and it brings an excitement. So I did do that, and yeah. It's fun.
I met a girl from Brazil who saw you at the Montreal Jazz Festival, and when I told her you were my friend, she started crying, and she said it was one of the best shows she ever saw and that you inspired her to be a singer.
Oh, wow.
How good was that show? Because I understand there was a lot of people in Montreal. Was that one of your biggest shows? Biggest crowds?
We've actually been fortunate enough to play Montreal probably... Well, there's one time it got rained out, but I think we've been there 4 times, and we're going back this year. Mm-hmm. It's the only time that that festival is so special and so huge. It's the only time that I've ever felt like a pop star on stage. This must be how the Beatles feel, mm-hmm. or felt, right? You end a song and there's massive people applaud, like a massive of people, mm-hmm. right? It's so cool. That's got to be up there as one of the top 5 moments of my life is playing those festivals for the almost rabid Montreal crowd. They just really love music there.
What are other faraway places you've played? Did you ever play Vancouver? Did you do?
Yeah, we've done the Canadian Jazz Festivals a few times. Far away, the farthest away that I've played would be probably England or Edinburgh, but and New Orleans, man, it would be. See, I never got a travel visa to go down and actually have a gig in New Orleans, but that's kind of on my bucket list at some point. Maybe move down there one winter and get some gigs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. to avoid the Canadian winter.
How about Toronto clubs? Now you're doing shows right now at the Cameron House.
Yeah, I've got
in the month of April.
Yeah, with that Hot 3 project. What
And then Reservoir Lounge.
I do. I've played the Reservoir Lounge, was where I learned how to sing, and it's, if you haven't been, it's this sort of subterranean, sort of feels like a speakeasy. There's an upright piano and brick walls, and that is where I cut my teeth. So I'm very at home there. And with the exception of a few years when I stopped singing there before the smoking ban came to be, I just had to step away because the smoking was everywhere in Toronto and it was so bad for my lungs. But with the exception of those few years, I've played there for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now I play the first Thursday of every month there. There's so many great rooms in the city.
Yeah, I mean, and they have a different audience, right? Like the Rex Hotel is a different audience than the Home Smith Bar at the Old Mill Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely. I like both those rooms. There's, we do live in a very, I mean, I know you often hear about, good venues are closing, but there are still some great rooms in this city. I've just started working in the last year at the Senator Wine Bar.
Beautiful little room. Tiny room, but beautiful, right?
Yeah, I think sometimes people get confused and they think, oh, it's the top of the Senator. Well, it's kind of the top of the Senator, but it's you go up the stairs and turn right. It's this narrow room that sort of feels like you're in a 1930s, I don't know, Parisian salon or something.
Yeah.
It's got great atmosphere, really lovely curated menu, and they've been putting some nice music in there. So we do the first Saturday of every month there.
Hughes Room, a great listening room.
Yes, good sight lines there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Lula Lounge, your Mardi Gras parties always sell out.
Yeah, that's true. We've been doing that for, wow. Well, I've been doing the Mardi Gras party thing for probably 5 or 6 years, but yeah, the Lula's a great venue for it. This is what I mean. We have great venues in Toronto to make music, and then a place like the Cameron House, which is like a little art bar with a great sound. I mean, really, I love how music sounds at the Cameron House, just as much as I thought it sounded great at Massey Hall. It sounds equally as good to my ears as the Cameron House, and so I take my little trio in there once in a while. The Hot 3 we're doing this month, April's Wednesdays. It's good.
And this will be the first time you're playing the Westminster Room at Old Mill Toronto on April 15th.
Yeah.
With a real piano.
There is a real piano in that room. So where's the Westminster Room?
It's on the main floor of the Old Mill, and it is a large room that looks very elegant, like lords and ladies would have dinner parties in there or something.
Oh, maybe I'd better dress like a lady?
It's very elegant. You usually do.
Pretty lady.
So the club scene here is good for you.
Yeah, and the other thing I love playing for are dancers, swing dancers. I like, number one, I like playing for all age groups, but dancers, I call it sweating to the oldies, right? I play the oldies, they sweat. Can be a little stinky by the third set, but watching people twirl around and dance and express themselves physically to music that was made for dancing, ostensibly, right?
Yep.
It's a thrill.
So Dover Courthouse, Palais Royale.
Yeah, those sorts of events are a kick. And there is that scene pretty much internationally. You can go anywhere. You could be in Paris or Tokyo, and they've all got a Lindy hopping swing dance scene. So it's good, because I feel like this is the future of our audience, because they're young. They're usually students. They're athletic. They are the future. So I love playing for them. And I also, when people talk about trad jazz being old person's jazz, I'm like, that makes sense, because we're sophisticated and we like these songs. But also, this music was made, Louis Armstrong was a young man when he made this music that we all are now replicating so many years later. It has a youthful, vibrant energy to it. And so that's why I think it still applies to university students that want to come out and dance. These are songs about dancing, screwing, drinking, getting high, getting your heart bust. Those things are universal. They don't go away. Right.
And I guess old people love watching young people swing dance. They also know how to dance, but maybe they love watching people throwing it in the air, remembering when they used to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's multi-generational, this jazz music.
Now, you're so positive, but I have to go down this road for a moment. The music industry is so full of challenges right now. with Spotify and everything paying you fractions of pennies on things. What is your secret to kind of, do you cope with it easily? Do you ignore it? How do you find the business of music?
I do dog portraits. Well, you know, I'm not in the position that everybody is in. I'm lucky in that I've got a roof over my head. But it is getting pretty dire for people. The thing is, you can't monetize album sales the way you once could. It's funny, I got a record statement from an online distributor who's been distributing for me for probably 12 years. And I hadn't kept my account up to date, so they couldn't send me my money for like 2 years. So I finally figured out, hey, I haven't got a statement from them in a while. So they sent me the statement, and they sent me the money. And it started out with, in 2015, I was making like $15 a CD. And then it slowly trickles down from 2015, for $15 a CD, slowly trickles down to 2019, where I'm making 1 cent or a fraction of a cent per play. And it literally went down dollar by dollar to get to this point. Well, that's nothing. That really is nothing.
Right.
How do you eke a living out of a fraction of a cent for a play when it's hard enough to get people to play your music now? What does a musician do? Well, a musician probably doesn't live in downtown Toronto where the rents are stupid expensive. It's very concerning for me, which is why I'm actually glad to be taking part in this April 15th event for Unison Benevolent Fund, because if you're a musician, you also don't have, it's not like it's a tenuous balance anyways.
Right, you don't have a safety net if something goes wrong. If you're severely injured, you can't pay your rent.
Yeah, if you were a piano player and you fell in the shower and broke your collarbone or your hand, what the hell do you do? Even on a good day, you can make 1 cent a play on So it's very concerning for me, and it's difficult to be on the road all the time.
So it must be hard to make a living these days.
It's become that way, which is why I think it's really important that we are community-minded, supporting each other's shows, supporting each other's releases. A lot of people are, doing these advance fund drives for their records. Those are important things so that art can be made, and art is so important to this crazy society that we're living in. It's really important, and so be community-minded and supportive of what's around you.
What advice would you give a young person who's coming out of scale school, or somebody even who didn't go to school and decides they want to do music for a living?
Like me?
Yeah.
I would say be passionate about what you do. Don't be ashamed to have other work. This is, unless you're some crazy trust fundian, it's okay and it's normal, and it takes the heat off if you have a steady job that can help give you artistic freedom. If you're out there playing every $30 gig that you can just to make your rent, you're not going to last very long making music. So that's what I would say. Be passionate about what you do. Surround yourself by good people that are good on your team. And I mean on stage, make your own history. Don't depend on other people to make your history, but do try and find a good team of musicians that you love. And it's okay if you have another job.
Right. Starving artist is not very sexy anymore.
No. No, not at all.
What do you have coming up in the next while? What is the next record you want to make, or the next thing you want to see?
Well, the next.
Other than your big Hollywood film, when you're acting.
Yes, who will play me? Not me, because apparently I'm not good at acting. I don't know. I'm actually grappling with what to do for my next record because of the climate that we're in. For recouping a record, it's so hard to monetize a record anymore. So I'm kind of considering maybe doing a crowdfunding thing. I've never done that before. To me, I thought it wasn't good optics, but now everybody's leaning on that model, and so I am considering doing that. But the exciting part is, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, will I do a live record with my alley cats, with McLeod. We mentioned him before. I had an idea in my head to do something, but I think it involved guys from New York City, which could be a little bit beyond me financially at the moment. But in my mind, I have a whole long list of records that I might make. It's crazy. I've got about 8 different concepts, and I have to decide which one I'm most passionate about and what sideman I want to use. So those are the things I think about when I'm brushing my teeth.
Well, we have lots of time to see you in concert. You've got some good lungs in you.
I do. I'm very, very grateful for that. And the one thing I did want to say, because we talked about earlier the breathing through the straw and then what it's like after transplant. It wasn't just like breathing through a straw before transplant. It was like becoming a 90-year-old woman. I had to bring an oxygen tank up the street with me. I needed an oxygen tank to walk up the stairs. I needed somebody to help me take a shower, because just drying myself off with the towel, I was completely obliterated. I couldn't breathe. You put new lungs and new life in somebody, and 3 days later I was sitting on the side of the hospital bed singing. 3 days later, my skin was glowing again. My lips weren't blue. My lips weren't blue immediately after transplant. The gift of life cannot be, it cannot be expressed in words, how grateful I feel. But the difference in singing was, I could relax and sing the ideas that I always wanted to sing. Because before, with my cystic fibrosis lungs, I'd want to sing it that one way, but then I'd have a coughing fit, or I couldn't even make expressive sounds with my voice without going on a wheezing jag. So the gift of life to me has meant I can laugh again, I can love again, I can ride a horse again, and I can be an artist again, I can be a singer again. So it's within most people, it's within your power to become a hero. Find out how you can become an organ donor in your province. Liveon.ca is the website where people can check by the province. Please do it. You can save up to 8 lives and enhance about 75 more through just tissue and tissue donations. So
wow.
Think about it.
Beadonor.ca.
Indeed.
Yay.
Thank you, Jaymz Bee. Love you too.
Wow, Alex Pangman, Canada's sweetheart of swing. Love that girl. Next week, it's going to be a little different. Apparently, people are going to be interviewing me. So next week, I'll be the person being interviewed. I don't think I'm going to interview myself. I might, but I think I'll have somebody else come in and do it. Anyway, join me next week. I'm going to have compulsive disclosure disorder. It is my birthday week, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye.